In January 2023, the good people at Hooked Wit found themselves with some time on their hands and started playing some VR. I soon decided to try to learn about VR programming. That soon morphed into the question, would it be possible to create a VR game based on Hooked Wit's YouTube series Endangered? And that developed into the decision to create an Endangered role-play adventure game. This video series will cover the whole process of developing the game, from initial requirements, development tools and techniques, through to the final game. Videos will be released at regular intervals as progress is made. To understand my thought processes, it is worth introducing myself. I have over 40 years' experience as a programmer software engineer. After a bit of Fortran at school, I was introduced to the Intel 8080 family at college. By 1983-84, I was writing games in 6502 assembler for the ORIC, Atari 800 and Commodore 64. In 1985 I moved into industry, initially working in Texas 9900 assembler, then onto the Intel x86 family, gradually transitioning to C as the primary language. For the last 20-plus years, it was a mix of C and C++, but I'm the first to admit my C++ experience is limited. I have barely looked at C# previously. The relevance of this comment will become obvious in due course. It is worth noting all my assembler experience was on microprocessors which had very low computing power compared to today's generation. So being aware of CPU load is ingrained in me. Around 2012, I played around with the Talk 3D game engine and used SketchUp as a 3D modelling tool. And from 2020, as a lockdown project, I created Hooked Wit's Endangered YouTube video series, still using SketchUp for modelling, DAZ Studio as the rendering engine, and the Shotcut video editor. Bearing the aforementioned in mind, this first video looks at my basic VR programming requirements and the tools I will use to satisfy them. Low-cost, preferably free, tools and assets. This whole process started as playing, and I'm not made of money. VR support. I already have my own HTC Vive Steam VR setup, so naturally that will be my starting point. But I don't want to be tied to a single VR hardware configuration. Relatively low computing demands. I have a fairly low-end graphics card, the GeForce GTX 970. If the game works without dropping frames on that, it should work on almost any modern VR-capable graphics card. Humanoid characters which can be animated, including lip sync. My characters need to move and also will speak, so their mouths need to move coincident with the spoken words. Support assets from standard 3D modelling file formats, whether off-the-shelf or custom-made. There are a number of assets from Hooked Wit's Endangered YouTube series which will be reused if possible. Additional assets will also be required. Support multiple scenes and the ability to move between them. This is essential for an adventure-style game. Fortunately, it is pretty much a given for all game development systems. I've already mentioned I have access to a Steam VR system, so that pretty much decided that environment for me. I looked at which development environments integrated with Steam VR, and fairly quickly decided that Unity was the way to go. Unity integrates extremely well with Microsoft's Visual Studio for C# script development. Unity is well established, with a huge amount of support to help learn it, and a well-stocked asset store, including many important items for free. Also, there is a Steam VR Unity plugin, which not only provides a quick and simple way to get started with VR development, it also encourages a standard look and feel for Steam VR games. It is worth mentioning at this point performance checking, because it has a direct impact on humanoid characters. Hooked Wit's endangered YouTube series was animated using DAZ Studio, including various characters based on the DAZ Genesis series. Also, DAZ Studio supports a DAZ to Unity bridge, allowing DAZ characters to be exported for use in Unity. This export process works. Unfortunately, just a single ported DAZ character in view took the frame generation to 19 milliseconds, and that is with nothing else in the scene. Then there is the further complication that DAZ characters are normally licensed for rendering only. An additional interactive license is required to use them in a game, and a number of the DAZ characters I wanted to use don't offer this as an option. So, transferring DAZ characters to Unity was basically a non-starter for me. Which brings me on to Make Human. As the name suggests, this tool allows the construction of human, or humanoid, characters. It has options to generate low-poly skins, and a simple Unity-compatible rig or skeleton. Using these options allowed me to construct a vaguely similar alien to that I used in DAZ Studio, and with this simplified alien, in a fully populated scene, the frame generation was less than 4 milliseconds. Many of the custom models in Hooked Wit's endangered YouTube series were created using version 8 of SketchUp, which, unlike more recent versions, is free for commercial use. There is a plugin for easy copying of front-to-back face. SketchUp provides for different textures or colors on the two sides of a surface, whereas we want the same on both sides. I also have Blender version 2.82. Among other things, this is extremely useful for converting between various model formats. There is also a plugin importer for Make Human models, allowing you to tweak these models, if necessary, before re-exporting them as the FBX file format. Texture files often require minor tweaks, for which I use GIMP. There is a plugin for generating normal maps. And for audio, I use Audacity. It allows the recording, editing, and exporting of audio clips. I will be using WAV and MP3 file formats. Finally, I will be generating some video clips for use in-game. So I will still make some limited use of DAZ Studio to render animations, and Shotcut to edit the videos together. So that's what I'll be doing, and the tools I'll be using. The next video will take you through all the steps necessary to create your first working VR environment.